Good afternoon to you from Wilmington, North Carolina. I am Mark Sudduth, and it is Tuesday, the third day of January 2023. You've tuned into my weekly video discussion where we're going to talk about mainly this series of storms headed for the West Coast. They've already had several. They call it the Pineapple Express, among other things, atmospheric river. I tell you what, this has been an impactful series of storm systems. The one coming in tomorrow and into Thursday, probably one of the biggest they've seen in a long time, and then it continues from there. We're going to take a look at that, the major impacts that are expected, what is already happening, what is to come, and then we're going to take a look at the ENSO situation, El Nino Southern Oscillation. This is a very El Nino-like pattern, but we're not in El Nino right now. We're in a La Nina, so why is this going on? We're going to take a look at the ENSO, and then it's warm in the east. We're not having any kind of major winter weather problems. Not much cold air anymore. We ended the year with a lot of cold air, some storminess, very stormy, especially for areas such as Buffalo, New York. You certainly heard all about that with the terrible blizzard and the loss of life up there. Well, everything has flipped, and now it is much warmer. People are talking about record highs and melting snow and rain instead of blizzards for the time being. All right? Good to have you along with me. Hope everybody's doing well. I know a lot of people that are sick. I've been feeling okay lately, but it's good to be back. So let's get on with it as we start the new year. Nice little radar animation here. This is from WeatherTap. I wanted to show this to you. They sent me a subscription for the next year or so, and every once in a while I'm going to bring it out because I really like maps, and I like how we can tell a story with maps, and this really helps to get us started here. The national picture, big old storm system here in the nation's midsection. Cold and snowy on the northern part of it, as you can imagine. Warm and stormy and a much more moist air mass to the south. And then just kind of mild overall compared to where we were, with some rain showers to the north and east of that. And then out here to the west, this is where our next storm system is going to come in, and the focus is really going to be in California as conditions start to deteriorate over the next 24 to 48 hours. And it's just going to be one storm after another streaming in here off the Pacific, a very active jet stream bringing these pieces of energy, these cold core storm systems. They are cyclones, but they're not tropical cyclones. These are your mid-latitude storms that come racing across the Pacific. They are very energized. They have a lot of different temperature contrasts with them, a lot of energy in the jet stream, and they are dynamic. And what that means is a lot of rain in the lower elevations, unbelievable amounts of snow in the higher elevations. I try to put a positive spin on the weather whenever possible. Weather does not always have to be bad and exciting and doom and gloom in terms of negativity. Sometimes it's good, but in this situation where we're going to get a lot of rain and a lot of snowfall, there could be a lot of problems associated with it, and we want to make sure people are aware. Yes, there is the good news side. That we're going to get a lot of moisture out west where it is desperately needed, but it is going to come with its own set of sort of consequences, if you will, over the coming days. This is what it looks like on the True Color satellite animation. Just look at that atmospheric river, as we call it, streaming in to the west here. All kinds of moisture and energy coming in. The next in a series of storm systems about to, I guess you could say, make landfall as it comes across the Pacific. Not a tropical system, of course not, but definitely a lot of energy, a lot of wind energy, a lot of just overall dynamics, as I said, and that's going to really bring some impacts here to our friends along the West Coast. And while the focus will be California, we do not want to leave out Washington and Oregon as well, and then even parts of the interior portions of the West. I saw avalanche warnings for a good deal of the mountains here of Utah yesterday. Again, too much of a good thing. You need the snowpack. It's great for the fresh water and the skiing interest and so forth, outdoor, wintertime sports fun, and all kinds of activities related to that. But those avalanches, those can be deadly, of course. So, yeah, the weather is making news headlines here. There's that one storm sitting now over the plains. This is the cold side of it here. There's your warm sector over there with your rising motion coming off that very warm Gulf of Mexico. All of this water down here is still generally warmer than average, and that gives us ample amounts of moisture, and that moisture leads to developing the instability needed for tornadoes, severe weather, just on a general scale, that'll be the case today and tomorrow for a good deal of the southeast here, even moving into the Carolinas. So just be aware of that. We might be in a new year, yes, but that doesn't mean the weather is still celebrating the old year, and it doesn't have a hangover either. It's coming in full force. It really is. And you can see that here on the National Weather Service homepage here. This is their watch warning homepage and their headlines up here. Southern storms, upper Midwest, wintry travel hazards, and another atmospheric river event. This little paragraph here kind of breaks it down for you in a nice summary. Active as we start the brand new year. This is where your tornado watch is. Down here, that's the yellow with flood watches on the southeast side of it. A couple of warnings in there. Those are very, they come and go. So just be aware. If you're in this area, watch for that on your smartphone. If you still have a NOAA weather radio, a lot of people just use a smartphone these days, but just make sure you are aware, because these storms can pop up quickly. They're probably going to be rain wrapped. You're not going to see them, and you want to make sure you are aware. This is your wintry travel areas. Wintry weather creating travel issues. Some avalanche warnings now shifted out of Utah. Now we're in the Rockies there of Colorado, and then there are the signs of this coming storm system. In fact, storm warnings right up against the coast there of Northern California, as a brutal line of energy, like I've said, comes in off the Pacific. Tons and tons of moisture, lots of dynamics with this cold air in the upper atmosphere. Big old cyclone wrapped up in there, windy at the coast. Trees are going to come down, mudslides, landslides, road closures, rivers rising. This will be a major impact event and series of events for the West Coast. We're going to come back to this page in a few minutes, because I want to click on this right here. When we do so, the rivers, lakes, and rainfall, and we're going to focus on the West. But first, just kind of reiterating what we've got going on, let's take a look over at Fox Weather on Twitter. I am working with Fox Weather again this year. Very excited to do that. And this is what they're talking about. You can see in the south, one of the tweets here, tornado warned storm in Bibb County in Alabama. That's the warm side. And then out west, look at this quote here coming out of the National Weather Service out in California. National Weather Service Sacramento had one of their meteorologists join Fox Weather. They were talking about this, and a real, let's see if I can get this to play again. Oh, it's playing. Good. One of the most impactful, I got to catch up with the program here, one of the most impactful storm systems that they've had in a while. Widespread flooding, roads washing out, hillsides collapsing, trees down. Look, this sounds like what you'd expect with a hurricane coming, but it's not. It's a big storm system coming into the west, a brutal system that they are looking at, and it needs to be taken seriously. Lots of benefits to the rainfall, yes, but a very serious situation there. In this part right here, the likely loss of human life if people aren't careful out there. I mean, this is the real deal in a very populous state out of an El Nino season. It's La Nina. You're used to this in an El Nino, but this is kind of different. It's just the pattern that we're in. Here are a couple of other tweets here. This is from Steve Bender, and these are some of the highlights. To put it simply, this will likely be one of the most impactful systems on a widespread scale that this meteorologist, this is written from the area forecast discussion out there, and this is what Fox Weather was showing in their quotes there on the video. Worst of all, the likely loss of human life. So really, take this very seriously. This is the snow forecast out west. Feet of snow in the higher elevations, and that spreads across eventually into the Intermountain West, the Great Basin, you name it. But then the rainfall, wow, look at this. This is no joke. Again, needed. You know, you don't want to be dry and burning. We've already dealt with that. We've seen that the last several years with these absolutely apocalyptic scenes, almost Hollywood-esque, of wildfires scorching California, right, the Golden State. Now, the rainfall, excessive. We're talking inches, almost a foot of rain in some areas. They have the hillsides out there, the runoff and the saturated soils, you name it, is all going to exacerbate the problem. And it's literally from coast to coast there, and I'm talking the northern coast to the southern coast. See, I didn't screw that up. The northern coast of California all the way down to the southern coast. Not quite to San Diego in terms of literally being coast to coast, but even San Diego all the way to the south. getting in on some of this action, maybe 1 to 2 inches of rain. Great to see, not so great on the impacts as people are going to be dealing with this for the next several days. I'm going to get this to go away. There we go. Come on, Twitter. Cooperate with me, please. Oh, I got to move this out of the way. I was getting in the way of progress. Typical. All right, what else? Fox Weather talking about the tornadoes. This is from yesterday. And then a bit of good news in there. Always good to see space launches. I'm a weather geek and a science geek. And there's one of the SpaceX launches. They did something like 61 or 62 in 2022. And they're off to the races here in the new year. What else do we have going on out there? Well, again, re-emphasizing this. I don't want to just leave this behind and gloss over it. These are the rainfall 2-day, like day 2, right? 48 hours out, quantitative precipitation forecast from a variety of computer models. This is the Weather Service output. Anything that you see in those reds there, more than 2-3 inches of rain, very, very high moisture content with this system. And then the overall exceedance in terms of how far above normal this is. We're talking in some areas, you're doing more in this one storm than you would see in maybe 5 or 10 years. That's what some of these yellows and oranges are showing out here in the close to the valley areas, east of the bay, right? So be mindful. Make sure people know about this. Take this seriously. California doesn't get a lot of weather headlines, and when it is, it's usually because of the wildfires, as I talked about. But this is coming. It's coming. It's going to keep coming over the next several days. So let's take a look here real quick at the GFS operational. We're going to look at the lower 48, and then we're going to zoom in on the next panel over just on the west coast. I'll show you what's happening. And this will include the severe weather. That is down here in the warm sector. There's your storm right now. This is the one coming in. The current conditions here from today's 12Z run. That just means it was initialized at about 7 a.m. Eastern time this morning, or 12 Zulu time. All right, so let's put this into motion. The first storm system in the east generally washes out, progresses off to the east, not much cold air coming in behind it. But then look out here in the west. There's your heavy mountain snow with the dark blues there in the Sierra. All those isobars that you see there, I talk about that a lot of times with these big bomb cyclones over the Great Plains or the nor'easters that come up the east coast. And certainly with hurricanes, when you see the isobars, lines of equal pressure, all compacted like that, that means windy, very windy. And that is a huge area of open ocean, the eastern side of the Pacific there coming into the west coast of North America and the United States proper. That's a lot of wind onshore coming in there. You're going to have trees down, power outages. It's going to make driving difficult. SFO, the airport out there, elsewhere, delays coming, so get ready for that. Travel nightmare for people trying to fly into the west coast over the next 24 to 48 hours. That storm system comes in, kind of washes out. That's what's interesting to me. They just kind of go away, these storm systems. They don't make it. Let's go back. See, it comes in there, and then it just spreads some of that energy over the Rockies and the Intermountain West, but it doesn't really do much after that. And that's kind of interesting to me. I don't really understand how that works. A lot of times you'll see these systems that'll come in. They usually dive southwest, and then they get re-energized coming across the plains like this. And sometimes they go south enough that they then generate another low that comes up the east coast. But the pressure pattern is such, with such strong high pressure to the east here, that these storms are just kind of coming in to the west, raining themselves out, so to speak, and the energy is very minuscule, and it comes up and over this big ridge here over the western Atlantic. I'm just kind of drawing it in for you. That's my theory on what's happening with this. We don't have a major buckling of the jet stream like this to get any of this energy to phase and create any big storms up the east coast. That is not the pattern that we are in. So the storms come into the west, dump their rain and their snow, and then they kind of run out of energy, I guess you could say, with the strong high pressure generally dominating the western Atlantic and the eastern United States. So at day 5, another one comes in with even more ridiculous amounts of heavy rain, more for northern California there. Really, it looks like the Bay Area and northern California. eventually spreading into the Sacramento Valley, Washington, Oregon as well. But notice, no major dips in the jet stream over here to the east. We don't see these height lines here, these thickness values really dropping down deep into the south. So it's going to stay generally warm in the eastern part of the United States. This is out now to about a week right there. And even another system tries to come in, just one after the other out there. And just real quick to show you the temperatures, this is interesting. We'll look at the contours. Nope, I screwed that up last time, didn't I? I want the shaded. There we go. So generally warm in the east as we put this into motion. Generally seasonable out west. You know, not ridiculously cold, but no major Arctic air coming into the country over the next week. In fact, if we just take all this all the way out to about a week's time, 168 hours there, Tuesday morning, the 10th of January, you know, mid-30s maybe, 40s in the east here. The freezing line, that's right here. Yeah, that's not too bad. The very cold stuff locked up here in eastern Canada. Honestly, it can stay there. That was really cold what we just had. And it didn't even snow down in my neck of the woods because of it. They had plenty of it up north, of course. But I digress. The bottom line is no major Arctic air coming into the lower 48 over the next week or so. Big time stormy pattern out west. Now let's zoom in. I said I was going to do that. I want to zoom in to the west coast specifically and look at this parade of storms coming in. This is the first one tomorrow into, and look at those dynamics there. You can just look at that, the GFS here. You see that? That's that incredible look just in the model. That big giant comma shape right there. Lots of energy. There will be thunderstorms. Probably get some cold air funnel clouds, very heavy rain, incredible snow at the higher elevations, probably some thunder snow, and even in the foothills all the way up into the Sierras proper. Wow, just like, again, you need the water, yes, but this is really going to be serious for the impacts. Heavy snow in Nevada, and then yes, it does eventually spread the moisture down into Southern California, into Southern Nevada. The low itself kind of eventually weakens and heads up towards British Columbia. Just not a lot of headway into the west where these systems just keep on going. They kind of rain themselves out, like I said. But then the next one comes in, Friday into Saturday, 987, 978, and then it just kind of, like I said, stalls out there, sending the energy on the southern part into Central California. This is late into the weekend. Now, the big problem here, this is what I want to show you as well, go back to the Weather Service, will be the rivers and their flooding potential here out west. Let's just go to California. This is at the weather.gov homepage. You click on rivers, lakes, and rainfall, and this gives you an idea of what we're looking at. Not a lot of flood problems right now, but that will start to change here in the coming days. We can zoom in. I really like this map. Very nice. Look at some of these. These are in the yellow, and you pop up the gauge over here. That's already in moderate. Any of these that are in yellow, those are the ones that are starting to become close to flood stage. Many, many more are going to head in that direction over the coming days. You can check this out yourself. Very important to watch this if you're out there in California, especially in the areas that are prone to river flooding. You know the areas already. You know what I'm talking about. Lots and lots of river gauges out there. Be sure you take advantage of this. Again, that's at weather.gov, right there on rivers, lakes, and rainfall. I'll be watching this very closely in the coming days, and it is very possible, might as well put this out there now, that for this next series that's coming in, the one that's going to hit tomorrow and Thursday, I don't have time to get out there for, but because they're going to come one after the other, I'm very seriously considering heading out to California this weekend, taking some of the equipment with me that we normally use for hurricanes. It'll be the first time that I've ever been to California for an active weather, it's not really chasing, but observation, reporting, and just documenting on what's going on using a lot of the equipment that we use, these remote cams that we can put in places. Maybe we capture a landslide as it happens, some of these rivers that could go over their banks. I got a lot of geographic knowledge base to catch up on here to know my area, get in touch with some people that I know out there. More on that later in the week once I catch a couple more model runs to be sure. But it's looking pretty likely, to be honest with you, that I'm going to head out to San Francisco and then go from there probably for several days, as the weather is pretty inclement out there and it warrants some attention. And I want to focus some attention on that, again, using some of the technology that we use to capture hurricane impacts and winter storms. This is a big winter storm for that area out west. Now, I mentioned that we are not in an El Nino. Kind of switching gears here towards tropical talk. This is related to that, the state of the ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. It's a La Nina, and we can tell that by a couple of ways. First are the anomalies here. And those anomalies, yeah, they're still negative. That's what the blue shows. This is our La Nina. And then the Atlantic, still generally warmer than average overall. Kind of a larger hole that has developed of cooler than normal temperatures there. But it's January. That really doesn't matter right now. But the Gulf, still very much above normal over here. And that's going to help to fuel those storms that do eventually make their way to the east. In fact, we can back out. I think this will let me. I can go back over here. Yep, click on this. Look at how warm the Gulf of Mexico is, especially the northeast part. It kind of changes year after year where the different areas of the highest heat content are. But overall, the Gulf of Mexico warmer than average. So anytime we do get these storm systems that do track across the south like this, you're going to tap that moisture, bring it up out of the Gulf, fueling those storm systems, and that's why we've seen the severe weather that we have seen recently, even going back to last month, that warm Gulf of Mexico helping to fuel that. Now, one of the ways that we track this whole ENSO, or El Nino Southern Oscillation as it's called, is through the SOI. There's a lot of talk out there already on social media and different websites that we're almost certainly going to head into an El Nino because we've been in La Nina for so long, as if the atmosphere in the ocean feels like it is owed something. It doesn't work that way. There's no such thing. We make up these terms overdue. We're overdue for a big hurricane. We're overdue for a blizzard, or overdue for an El Nino. The atmosphere, the earth, doesn't really have a memory like that. It doesn't have some kind of a clock. Yes, there's geologic time and there are patterns, but there's no such thing. It's not like, if I had a bill hanging around my office. You know, you get an overdue bill. Luckily, my bills are all caught up. But you know what I mean? Like, nature doesn't work that way. Yes, you get a bunch of things that happen in a row, and you eventually say the rubber band has to snap at some point. But that's just us usually projecting our timeline onto things and our way of doing things with calendars. Bottom line, we should go into an El Nino eventually because it's been so long, but that doesn't mean we have to, if that makes sense, okay? And one of the ways that we can watch this evolve is through the Southern Oscillation Index. I've mentioned this before, and I wanted to show it to you. We're going to do this once a week, and it's these numbers right here. The 30-day, which, by the way, December ended really high, especially above November. We were tanking there and then went right back up as we got to December. It looked like we were headed towards SOI numbers that could get us closer to changing the pressure pattern. And that's what this is all about. I'm going to go back and show you on the other map in just a minute what this means. But these high numbers, the 30-day and the 90-day, sitting well above 10, and you know, and the magic number is really 7, plus 7 and minus 7, according to the SOI folks down there at the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. Usually it is your plus 7, that's your La Nina. Minus 7, that's typically your El Nino threshold. And why? Why does this matter? Well, let's go back over here to the global map. And the SOI really helps us understand generally when the pressure pattern and the SOI numbers are positive, strongly positive, the air pressure is lower in the Western Pacific than it is in the Eastern Pacific. This is an oversimplification of it, so bear with me here. I'm trying to explain this to you. When the SOI, if I can say it, the SOI is high, your net flow of air is generally from east to west. Lower air pressure in the western part of the Pacific, the tropical Pacific, higher pressure to the east, and on our planet, the air flows from high pressure to low pressure. That is your La Nina setup. When the SOI is negative, and consistently and strongly so, the pressure pattern generally reverses. You have lower pressures to the east, higher pressures to the west, and then your net flow of air is this way, and you help to bring up the warm waters of the western Pacific. There's a lot of mechanisms involved. You transport that, you create these downwelling Kelvin waves, all kinds of oceanic and atmospheric shenanigans takes place. One of my colleagues, Matt, he likes that word shenanigans. That's where I got it from. But that's what happens. So right now, the SOI is and has been strongly positive, as you can see here. October was positive. November started to tank a little bit. December ended very positive. Our current 30-day is still the highest it's been all the way back even to the fall. We're at 19.45. We're almost to 20. And then the 90-day average is up there, and then today's contributor, a solid 19. Bottom line with this, to wrap it all up, once and until and unless I see these numbers start to really go down and stay down and get negative, we're not going to switch the pattern to push that warm pool of the western Pacific to the east. It just doesn't work that way. And this is one way to monitor that. One of many ways. There's a lot of different methodologies. This is one of them. It's fairly simple to understand. So there we go. Speaking of all that, one of the tools that we use to track it, I like the CFS. This did really well last year. It gets updated every day, so you can get a good running, if you look at it once a week or whatever, you get a good running idea of what it's doing. The blue areas are the latest ensemble members right there, and these fluctuate from day to day, but the mean, the ensemble mean right there, this black line that I'm highlighting now with yellow, it's very interesting. It has gradually been trending downward. This is the 1 degree Celsius anomaly right there. That's 1 degree Celsius on the positive side, and the ensemble mean was much closer to that in recent weeks. It has trended less and less towards El Nino threshold in the last couple of weeks. And we'll just have to see if this continues. Once a week we will look at this. I saved today's graphic. I forgot to save it last week. That's okay. I could probably pull it off of my video and just do a screen grab if I need to. But the bottom line, I like the CFS. It does a pretty good job. It's not infallible. It's not perfect, but it's pretty steady. I like the fact that it's every day, kind of keep a running tab on things. And for now, it is not suggesting a screaming El Nino going into the summer. Yeah, we got a ways to go. But look, we're pretty far down there in the La Nina territory right now. And we got a lot of ground to make up even to get to neutral, which should happen right before summer starts if the CFS is to be believed. And maybe this just keeps getting shifted out further into time, meaning that we enter the summer months in neutral conditions instead of El Nino or La Nina, and that will have impacts on the upcoming hurricane season, which is still many, many months away. For now, though, it's the off season. We do keep an eye on these different storm systems. Now, the focus, as I've said here in this very long update, our attention will be out west. Again, a very serious situation setting up. Take it seriously. If you know people out there and they might be kind of aloof to what's going on, I don't know. I mean, California is known for sunshine and Hollywood and your sunglasses and the stars, right? Hollywood stars. And like sunny Southern California. Can you imagine being a forecaster in San Diego? Usually it's 72 and sunny all the time, right? Not so much over the coming days and maybe even the next 10 days or so. And I just wanted to make sure you are aware. That's part of my job. All right? All right, your job. Please subscribe to the channel. Help us grow. I love interacting with all of you. We do have our Patreon. That's available in the description. Go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. I'm on Twitter @HurricaneTrack. And, of course, subscribing on YouTube, it's easy now, too. They got those handles. The @HurricaneTrack is on YouTube as well. You guys have a great rest of your week. I might do an update Friday if I decide I am, in fact, going to head out there to California. Might as well do an update Friday just to let you know what I'm thinking and set the stage for how I would cover an event out in the Golden State. All right? As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I do appreciate it. I'm Mark Sudduth. We are Hurricane Track here on YouTube. Appreciate you watching. I'll be back with you probably by the end of the week.